Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to add EDM bass lines and chords using the loops function in Soundtrap. Alright, the first thing that we need to do here is move our chosen EDM beat that we've already done. We might have already altered it, but we're going to move it to the 16 bar mark, because around here is about the 30 seconds mark. That's where our drop is going to be. So before this is all going to be our build up, and that's what we're focusing on today with our chords and our bass line. The next thing you need to do is go down to the bottom, just here, and hover your mouse over here where it says key. Now, you have two options that you can choose from in this project. You can either choose D major, like I have here, or you can choose B minor. Alright, I'm going to choose B minor today. But it's completely up to you. From there, we're going to have a look at the bass line first. Now, there are three options when creating a bass line. The first option is to use audio loops from the Soundtrap library. I do that by clicking on the loops button here, and then this panel opens up. What I can do from there is narrow it down even further by clicking on the EDM tag, which is just a fantastic way of just getting the sounds that you want. If I want to narrow it down to just the bass line, I'll click on bass as well. Now I can listen through to each of these individual ones. Have a listen. Now I don't necessarily like that, but what you can do is roll down and have a look at each of these. What about this one? One thing that might help this, you've got to make sure that you're clicking either major or minor. So because I've picked B minor, I've got to make sure that my bass line is in the minor scale, or it's not going to work. See how it's actually changed it, so all of them are going to be minor now. If you pick D major, make sure that this has the major scale. Let's have a listen to some of these. Bit too aggressive for me. What about this one? Not quite. How about this? Love it. Okay, what I'm going to do is click and drag it onto my new track over here, and it will come up as an audio file. The disadvantage with this is that you cannot manipulate it afterwards in many ways. You can't change the notes that are already there, so you can't have that same flexibility. So that's option one. The second option is to narrow it even further down by clicking on this MIDI tag as well. What this means is that when you choose one of these loops now, you're not going to be choosing an audio wave one like this, but it's going to be a MIDI track. And the advantage is that you can actually change that afterwards. I'll show you what I mean. Have a listen to this one. Alright, now I'm going to drag that over here to a different track. You'll notice immediately that it looks very different to this other bass line. If I click on piano roll, this will come up here, and I can actually go in and move these notes left and right to different notes of the B minor scale. So, for example, if instead of that, I'm going to change it up to here. There we go. Let's have a listen to that now. Now suddenly it's got a bit more of my own personality in it, and you can play around with doing that within your own as well. You can also change the instrument a lot more effectively with this. You can't really change the instrument if you're not using a MIDI version of this. So it gives you far more options to use a MIDI file version. The final and probably the most tricky version of this would be actually to create your own bass line from scratch using the B minor or D major scale. To do this, you click Add New Track, and then we'll click on Guitar and Bass. Make sure you click on Bass Electric or Synth. I'm going to click on Bass Electric. This is because we're studying EDM or electronic dance music, so it wouldn't make sense to use an acoustic bass. Let's try this one here. I've loaded it up now, and now I have my piano roll. I can use the notes of the B minor or D major scale. Remember that D major has an F sharp, so we change the F to F sharp, and the C to C sharp. So if I'm starting on D, it will sound like this. Using the F sharp and the C sharp. And if I'm doing B minor, it's the same notes, just starting on B. So those are the different options I have. I can actually manually put that in using the on-screen keyboard. I can click using my mouse, or if you've got an electronic MIDI keyboard at home, you can plug that in and do that yourself as well. To do that, just click the red record button and then put it in yourself. Make sure when you're recording a bass line that it's in the right octave. This is probably a bit high for a bass line because remember, basses are meant to be low. So I can click down the octave and it will sound a lot lower now. So those are the three options for creating a bass. When you are creating your synth, you can use loops as well in the exact same way. So I've decided I want to use this version here. I'm going to delete the other tracks now, get rid of those. So I only have the bass line that I want. Now I'm just going to repeat it as well by looping. The next thing that I'm going to do is go over to the loops function, and instead of looking for a bass this time, I might look for a synth, which gives me options over here. Let's have a listen to some of these. That sounds like a really good chord accompaniment to it. Let's have a listen. And if I put this over, starting from bar 3. Oh, it didn't quite play there. Let's have another listen to that. Oh, I know why. I accidentally put it in the drum layer. How silly. You've got to make sure you put it in the right layer. Here we go. Notice that I put the synth coming in at a different time to the bass line. That's what we know as staggered entries, and you've got to make sure that you put things in staggered entries. That's one of the requirements of the assessment task. It doesn't matter whether you put the bass or the synth first, just use your ear and trust whether it sounds good or not. So from here, it's up to you. Experiment with using different bass lines. You don't just need one. You can often have 2 different bass lines or 2 different types of synths. You can layer synths on top of each other. Let's have a listen to this one. On top of this. It might not work, but you've got to use your ear. That doesn't actually sound so bad. So you can add things on top of each other. That's how to use EDM MIDI synths and for chords, and you can also use it for bass.